Welcome back to Cool Club's headquarters here in Scottsdale. Today we have got Justin Minisci from Edel Golf. Welcome.
Thank you.
And as always, we've got Mark Timms, CEO and founder of Cool Clubs.
Yeah.
And today we're going to talk about Edel. This is not something that we've done before, but we've done some robot testing and we are ready to just dive in. So we have done the robot test on the SMS line. So maybe let's just start there. I'm pretty excited about the look of it and the tech. So open up. Let's see.
Yeah, so like you, we do our robot testing as well, and the interesting thing is, the irons perform great in our robot test, but what we found is it didn't show the true capability of our weighting system, the SMS weights, because a robot doesn't react to weight and moving it around a head. So although the robot testing is extremely valuable for us for R&D purposes, the player testing is where we really saw the magic come out of our golf club, because every player is unique. The way people perceive weights is unique, and based on where you put that weight, it makes them do funny things. So it was pretty fascinating.
And the weights obviously are super obvious.
Yeah,
maybe
you
Mark
kind of
can
see
show it.
these on the screen here. There are 3 weights in the back of the heads, all the way through the wedges. And they're, 2 to 10 grams, you said, right?
So the 2 black weights on there are kind of what we consider like dummy weights. They're 2 grams. And then the weight with the red ring around it, those are going to be the heavy weights, and that'll be either an 8 or a 10. But yeah, they're in 2-gram increments, so 2 to 10 grams, and you can customize it till your heart's content.
And when you buy a set, obviously through us it might be slightly different. We would do full customization for you, but clients can purchase the weight kits online and go through them on their own. Yeah,
so we're a little different than other companies in that way. Golf is a game. We want you to have fun, and sometimes you might wake up on the different side of the bed and you decide, you know what, I want to try something different. And we want to give players the capability to do that and to personalize their golf club. We want them to have fun, so they can go on and they can purchase weight kits. It is designed so that the player can go out and they can make adjustments if they want to. Fitting is obviously extremely important, and our golf clubs, we ideally want them to be fit into, but at the same time, enjoy the golf clubs. Yeah. We're not curing cancer. We're building golf clubs, and it's a game, and it's meant to be played like that. So we offer that. We don't Loctite them in. We don't do any of that. Like, have fun. Do whatever you need to do. Try some things out.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's a bit like even the adjustable drivers and stuff. We kind of go through that in the fitting and get them all dialed in or whatever. Yeah. People rarely change them later, but if they want to, they can, right? So
yeah,
try a lighter club or a heavier club, you can play around with it, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and one of the other benefits is, as I was saying to you guys before we jumped on here, is, we're an anti-lead tape company. Sorry to the lead tape companies out there, but we want to put you out of business. We hate to see golf clubs with piles of lead tape. We just think it's unnecessary. Tour players for decades have been having golf clubs made by their manufacturer by moving weight around, and they chrome over it, whether it's wedges with tungsten plugs or irons. So really, when we set to build these, we just wanted to give every player out there the ability to move weight around just like a tour player without having to be a tour player.
Yeah.
It makes a difference, obviously, which is, if it didn't, I don't know too many people playing non-adjustable glued drivers anymore.
Nope.
Because if you have a driver that you can move weight around and change the orientation, the face angle, it helps improve dispersion and performance, right?
Well, no, it certainly can. It doesn't hurt, and it certainly can help a lot if you're trying to change something a little bit one way or another. I mean, how much change do you notice? I mean, obviously every player is a little different, right? As we've noticed, and sometimes players do the opposite, what you think. But if you move the weight all the way from one side to another, you see that as affecting draw or face, fade bias more, or is it where you tend to hit it on the face? People react to that?
Yeah, so
what changes?
Yeah, so basically everybody thinks it's center of gravity. We're changing center of gravity, and that's really not what's happening. Does it change? Yes, a little bit. But really what it's doing is it's manipulating the closure rate. And we would love to kind of create a nice, neat package of, if you do this, it equals this.
Right.
Unfortunately, it just doesn't work that way, because human beings are so different in how we perceive weight. So, I mean, I might have one player that I fit, and I put the weight in the heel, and it makes them hit the ball further left, which is what you would expect.
Right.
Heel helps, close the face.
Yeah, as we see in all the drivers, right? The weight in the heel, low back, to help close the face down. Yeah.
I might fit another player, same skill level, and I put the weight in the heel, and it helps him hit more of a fade.
Yeah.
It's all of a sudden they feel that closure rate happening, which actually helps them hold the face open longer.
Yeah.
So it's based on how handsy a player is, how much they cast. I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into this. So with our weighting system, to keep it simple, the way that we ideally tell players to fit themselves or to go and get fit is hit 5 shots with the heavyweight in each location, look at the numbers, and you will very clearly see which location is best for that player.
Yeah, that's a great idea, yeah. I mean, we're all tragics, so I'm actually afraid to even get these out on the course or something like that. I'd be down the rabbit hole too far. It'd be a nightmare.
Yeah, we see you in a bunker somewhere with a wrench playing around.
Yeah. Don't mind me for a second, just look away.
Yeah.
But, going back to your lead tape story, like, you don't want to put lead tape on these things. When they turned up for robot testing, I was like, oh, look at these things. These are awesome. So just the press of your logo on the hosel is amazing. Then let's just touch on the sole grind, because I think that might be underestimated.
Especially the tour one here. This is the sole grind. It's kind of hard to see on this picture. You might be able to see a little bit that way.
We'll throw some overlays over this so people can see it.
But it's definitely an interesting grind. So essentially what it looks like to me anyway, so you got some relief on the back side and the front side. It's pretty common now to see it on the front side. We see quite a bit of that. I mean, especially Srixon has been a very square leading edge, just to help it stop from digging, obviously, right?
Sure.
And then obviously the relief on the back is to make the sole basically thinner.
It makes it play much more like a blade for the better player that wants to really work the ball. Absolutely.
And am I right? It looks to me, I mean, maybe I'm going cross-eyed, but like there's almost like a C grind kind of shape to the sole. It does work a little tighter in the heel.
A little bit.
Yeah.
It's very similar to, like, if you see on our T grind with the wedge, you can kind of see here, kind of a tri-sole. And again, like Mark was saying, it's the leading edge to help that player who, better player. If you're going to hit a knockdown shot or a punch shot, it helps prevent from digging. The heel relief is going to prevent, is going to help it play more like a blade what a player uses, but without the punishment of a blade.
Yeah, and turf interaction when you're getting down to those blades is one of the biggest final points, because you look at all the lofts end up kind of similar when you're in simple forged products. The heads haven't got crazy technology in them. Maybe this is an exception. So you're really dialing in. How do I get this through the turf? How does that improve my ball striking? How does that create consistency of my numbers? So I think this has got that plus tech, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's something unique out there, and again, the way that we design golf clubs is with kind of fitting instruction in mind. Is how can these grow with the player? We ideally want you to buy a set of our irons and be in them for a few years. We want you to buy a putter and be in it for a few years. We don't want this to be a honeymoon phase where the putter works or the wedge works or whatever it is works for 6 months and then it ends up in the basement, right? I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I love shiny toys. I have 6 million golf clubs in my basement.
Yeah, right.
My wife wants to kill me half the time. But, we're not releasing product every year because we can't improve on this every year. That's just not who we are. We have some advantages in that way, being a little bit of a smaller brand. We can release that product when it's demonstrably better, when it actually is improvement. And for us, we look at as Edel, as we're a scoring brand. We want to help you hit 1 or 2 more greens around. We want to help you reduce your 3 putts. That leads to better playing. And if you're better, if you're shooting better scores, typically you're going to have more fun on the golf course.
I find that's the case.
Yeah.
Play better and, it's more fun, right?
Yeah, go back out there again.
Yeah, exactly. So whether you're a better player, whether you're just your average amateur player that's struggling to break 100, these will help every type of player have more fun, shoot better scores, and again improve dispersion. That's really the way these clubs are designed. Is we don't only want to give you more distance, right? Will you get some more distance? You can, sure. Depends on how you set the club up. But we really want to shrink dispersion left to right and from front to back. And that's better golf.
That really does marry up with what we do. We've got a lot of experienced fitters here, guys that have been doing it, guys and girls have been doing it for 20 plus years, and I think they all understand that. Distance has become a big part of the game, as we've seen in the media right now. It's crazy, but not with irons. Distance irons help a very, very small demographic of players. It's being able to create a nice stable land angle. It's getting a nice tight dispersion, getting good divot patterns so that the player creates consistency in their iron and wedge play. And again, wedge fitting is something we're really going to expand in this year in terms of being able to swap golf shafts, mess around with lie angle, really dial in grind throughout the set, because that bounce and grind, bounce we've talked about this a little off camera here, but it's so important to be able to create consistency in just the final number. If you're chunking it a little bit or not getting it quite right, you have no idea how far you're going to hit that ball, which just ruins your wedge play, right?
Well, that's one of the interesting things when you do take a player through a wedge fitting. And I'm fortunate where I live. I fit players outdoors, and I don't fit a ton of players because ideally I like to kind of have help our accounts out and send them to those guys. But people, they just don't understand grind, and they don't understand how that impacts things like ball speed. And you'll switch up grind and they'll see the numbers and you're like, why is this 2 miles an hour faster? It's because, it works better with how you deliver the golf club. Yeah. It's not sticking, it's not digging, or it's,
You get less debris between the ball and the face. And,
absolutely.
And that's it. Yeah.
What's the loft on your pitching wedge?
45. So between, so both sets are the exact same loft. So 45-degree pitching wedge, 32 7-iron, to give you an example. We purposely did that. And if you notice on the SMS, the standard, there's not much offset in that either.
No, it looked like you could blend them pretty much any way you want. Right?
And that's exactly why we designed them the way we did, to make it easy to do combo sets. It's just so popular. I do it. I have a 4 and 5 in the standard SMS, and then the 6 through wedge in the pro. And it's, I need a little help in the long irons.
Well, you see tour players doing it now.
Yeah,
Tour players throwing chunky 4 or 5 irons. So it's like, if they're doing it, then, Mrs. Haverkamp should definitely be playing something a little easier to get in the air at the top of the bag, right?
Yeah, nobody's paying me to play the game, so I need all the help I can get.
Yeah. Let's touch on the wedge grinds. It sounds like you've got a bunch of them. I think that's kind of important. Other brands, there's M, there's C, there's D, there's W, there's T. Right. So let's have a look at what you got.
Yeah, so we have...
well, first of all, what lofts do they come in? You go
48 through 60.
And 2-degree increments on all of them? Okay.
Yeah, sometimes we'll get a request for a 62 or 64, but it's just so far and few between.
Yeah, it is.
So we have 5 different grinds in the 58 and 60. So that's C, T, V, D, and a P grind, and I'll kind of discuss each one in a sec. And then in our 48 through 56, it's just the C, T, V, and the D. Okay. That's based on player feedback. The P grind's the newest edition, which we just brought out a few months ago. That's kind of a low bounce, wider sole grind. It's phenomenal out of the rough, a little sharper leading edge. It's for the player that really likes to hit a variety of shots around the green out of bunkers. For me, with my 60, for example, I like the T grind. But when it gets firmer in July and August, I'll move into the P grind because it's just harder turf. And I'm not worried about digging as much.
And you've gone fully down the rabbit hole there.
You have no. Look, when I got my samples in of the wedges or the irons, I mean, I don't think my wife saw me for a month because I just had a satchel full of weights and a wrench, and I just sat out there just sweating buckets.
Yeah.
It's hard not to because again,
that's fun.
What does this do? What impact does moving this weight over here or this grind have on my numbers? And we've seen spin fluctuate by just moving the weight by up to 800 RPMs in the wedges.
Okay.
It is. It is. We've seen ball speed increases. The numbers just jump all over the place for some players. And some players, it has minimal impact.
Right.
It just really depends on who that player is and how they react and what they're...
I would imagine the steeper they are, the more effect it has.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, I'm super shallow. I can barely ever take a divot.
Yeah.
Doesn't really make a lot of difference, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I actually have something similar to what you've got on here in my lob wedge.
Oh, the D grind.
Yeah, I've done it for a million years.
It's amazing. It is amazing.
That's actually something I'm not very versed on. I've seen that channel. Lots of companies have done that. We've dug it out of wedges ourselves by hand. So what's the story there with that center channel?
Well, essentially what they're doing basically is you end up with a wedge that has 2 bounces, right? So the bounces, from here to here across is really the technical bounce. But once you dig into the ground, I mean, this second angle here, this is really a ton of bounce. So this doesn't want to dig in the ground. Didn't I explain that correctly?
Exactly.
It's like it's 2 bounces basically. The bounce is across here. So I play a 60-degree wedge that's got, probably only 2 or 3 degrees bounce. It's relatively wide and stuff, but it has this channel in it. So even though it has very little bounce, it just doesn't want to dig in the ground because that second part hits and it just, kind of deflects it off.
Kicks it out, right?
Yeah. So it works really well.
So if you were to compare that with like the
with here where you've got, just a big wide sole that's relatively flat, that's got quite a bit of bounce on it probably, right? Because it's wide. Yep. That's the other thing people don't understand too. The wider the sole is, that affects what we call the effective bounce, right? So if you have a 10-degree bounce wedge and it's got a really thin sole, that's X amount of bounce. But as the sole gets bigger, that effective bounce becomes more because the the back end's higher off the ground, it's just longer.
When I actually do wedge fitting, the actual number on the club I tend not to pay attention to. I look at just the general shape. I'm like, okay, yeah, it says 14 degrees of bounce, which you know is going to be higher bounce than something that might say 10. So there's there's a reference point there, but really it's like, what shape does this player need? So I get them to go through a protocol of, what is the shot that you're playing most? Is it a square on shot, or are you opening the face out? And then I'm adding heel relief on that. Or are you putting the leading edge down, or are you laying the trailing edge back? And then I'm trying to dial that. And I really don't care about the number as much as I do the shape.
Yep, absolutely. And it's grind is probably the most, I mean, you guys know this better than anybody, it's probably the most misunderstood aspect of a wedge. They just, most people, I'm sure they come in, and when I see them at least, or we do fittings at our studios, so many people are in like an S grind. And we're like, well, why did you choose this? And you're like, I don't know, it's standard.
It's a standard one.
Standard grind. Yeah. And we really want to get players away from that and help them understand, we're a big fitting company, and it's like, we want them to understand how much that impacts everything, especially most players, again, they want more distance. That's always nice. But even in wedges, they're like, oh, man, I'd like to hit it a little further. And I'm like, well, change loft.
Yeah. Right, exactly. It's the easy way to do it, right?
They don't want to hear that sometimes. But you see the difference between grind and ball speed, and all of a sudden they start to get it.
Yeah. So. Just quickly over your reference, we'll pull up some overlays too. But so C is kind of what we're all thinking of. C is, heel, trailing edge, bit of toe relief.
Yeah, so C is kind of like for your moderate, steepness attack angle, kind of for your moderate swing. It's a very versatile wedge. A lot of players use it in like our 56 through 60 degree lofts. The V grind is kind of, where's V grind? So this is V grind, which, I'll kind of show you guys. This is kind of more of like our standard sole. This is going to be the most versatile for the majority of players. Very popular grind to help digging, but it's not going to be for your super steep guy. Right. The D grind is going to be for that, based on what my
it's got some bounce on here, but it's relatively shallow, so it's short.
Exactly.
So back. So
that's a very popular grind in kind of our 48 through 50 people. Full shot wedges. Put it that way.
Yep.
Okay. The C or the T is kind of similar to the Pro in a sense. It has 3 different grinds, or a trisole.
Yeah.
So that's one of my favorite grinds. I play that in my 60 V grind I have in 50-54.
Yeah.
So that has the most heel relief out of any of our wedges. So if you're somebody that likes to really lay that face open without the leading edge rising up, your T grind and your P grind are going to be your ones for that.
Okay.
C grind also has heel relief, but not as much as the T.
And what did you say was like the low bounce K? What's that grind?
That's the P grind.
That's P, right? Okay.
So that's for the guys that like to play a variety of shots around the green. The leading edge for me, when it gets soft, because of where I live in the Northeast, the Maryland area, other than July, August, it's pretty soft. Bent grass.
Right.
That's a little aggressive for me with how I deliver the glove head, but come July, August, when things firm up, I do switch over to the P, because I've had our samples for a while. But T grind overall is just one of my favorite. It's just there's not many things that you can't do with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's exciting. But probably the full shot grinds most popular, to give people an idea, would be probably the V and the D, and then probably the C.
Yeah.
And then wedges that you're going to play around the green, you're looking at T and the P are the most popular by far, and then some C in there.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. I love the story. I love the shapes. I love the look. I think it's great. And we'll actually overlay some of the robot data in here. I'll find a time in this chat to kind of overlay. We've got robot data on them. They performed really well. Very, very straight. You can just know from the loft and the whole story you told there, it's not like a super distance iron. It's more about accuracy and spin consistency. So from memory, it performed well in our tour test, which is purely based on spin consistency across miss hits in the face, and the tightness of the circle that it created, basically.
And I can send you guys some of our player testing data, but I have a few things I can throw out right now. So, for example, just to give you an idea, when we did player testing, when we had the weight in the best position for that player, we saw average ball speed increases by up to 3 miles an hour, like 3.2 miles an hour.
Really?
Yeah. We saw an improvement in dispersion, which to me, the ball speed thing is great, right? Ball speed is
really okay, yeah.
But
we
saw when we tested players with our irons over their gamers, regardless of the manufacturer, right? And these are all good players. So the players we're testing are all typically like D1 college players. We saw an improvement in dispersion across the board from their gamer once they got fit and with the weight in the right location by 15%.
crazy.
That is a game
That's
changer.
big.
Yeah.
You know,
When you're saying fitting that weight for the player, you're doing what you said to us recommended. You just put in the heavy and heel, middle, toe.
exactly. So we had them hit their gamer, whatever that was, their 7-iron.
Yeah.
And then we gave them our 7-iron. We would switch back and forth. And we would fit them to find out their ideal weight location. And we would make sure that their gamer they were fit for, which they all are. And once we found their ideal location, we would put those clubs head to head.
Yeah.
And we saw an improvement across the board of 15% in dispersion. Some players got a lot more than that, some a little bit less, but that's the thing I think we're most proud of. You know, and players say, well, I want to hit it further. And I'm like, well, then instead of a 7-iron, use a 6.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Yeah.
But if we can improve dispersion, we're actually going to help you play better golf. You know, giving you another 5 or 6 or 7 yards out of the center of the face, but if we and not helping the direction of the golf ball, it just helps you hit it 7 yards further in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
For us,
10 yards deeper into the woods isn't necessarily a good thing.
sometimes depends on who you are. But you know, we just want you to hit more greens, and if you hit more greens and you have a putt in your hands more often, then you know, for your next shot after an approach, we want a putt in your hands. Put it that way.
Yeah. Well, you've just teed up a great segue here. We haven't got the product here, and this is what I know Edel for originally was for putters and putter technology.
Yeah.
And I read a lot of the books that came out originally on, you know, aim, and I still use it today. Although I don't fit a lot of Edel putters, I still use those fundamentals of offset and lines and shape of head to help me change players' perception of what they do with aim. So if you've got a few minutes, let's touch on that line of
Absolutely.
stuff.
So our putter system, to keep it simple, is based around improving 2 areas, which is aim and speed. I think we can all agree that probably the most fundamentally important aspect of being a better putter is reading greens. If you can't read a green, you're in trouble. Next is, you know, for us, in over 90% of the players that we've tested, we found that they are not aimed where they think they are. So even if you can read a green, if you're not aimed on the intended line, you're going to struggle. So for us, we have a series of different shapes. We have 5 different putter models right now. So all that's customizable. So we want to understand, when we're doing a fitting, we want to understand how you perceive shapes. And then also all the alignment is customizable. So are you a 2 top line, 1 bottom line guy? Are you a 3 bottom line, 3 top line guy? Are you a clean, no alignment plate or no lines?
Yeah.
We want to understand that. And I get questions a lot about, well, what if I have a mallet, what does that do to my aim? And my response is, I have no idea. Again, like
That's the right answer, actually.
yeah, I mean, like the irons, we would love to put it in a nice, neat box for you and say, oh, this equals this, and it just doesn't work. You know, a blade for me might aim me right. You know, for Mark, it might aim you left. Yep. I don't know until we put you through a fitting. But once we understand, you know, I was giving an example of a really good player up in the Northeast that I fit recently. You know, he aimed 6 inches left outside the hole, and he's a +6 player. So once I got him fit into an Edel putter, we completely changed shapes. He was playing a mallet, fit him into a blade, pushed his aim back right. We got him from 6 inches left outside the cup to right in the center of the cup, which that's amazing progress. So imagine what that does to a player's confidence when, you know, they'll say, oh, so in your opinion, this is the better head for me. And I said, it's not my opinion. I'm just a monkey turning a wrench.
It's a lot easier to make it if you're lined up the right way to begin with.
Oh, absolutely. And then, then on top of that, the second part of our product, our fitting system, is the speed. So we can manipulate weight not only in the head, but inside the shaft all the way up through the butt section. So again, based on your tempo and how you deliver a putter, we can either help acceleration or slow that down. So for example, the player that takes the putter back really far and they tend to just over accelerate through the ball because they have all that mass coming through, we want to slow that player down. So we start pushing weight towards the head.
Yeah.
But we don't want to necessarily put all the weight in the head, because then we start taking feel away and their speed control suffers. So we can actually move weight inside the shaft towards the head, so it mimics the same effect while still giving them the same feedback and speed control.
So we're using like a back-weighted stick with different sections of weight, you know, in like the tip of the stick, in the middle of the stick, and the butt of the stick.
Yeah, so we use the OptiVibe system. So we can that can travel inside, up and down the shaft. It's an amazing tool that we use in our fitting systems, and it really helps players. A lot of times when we had belly putters and they banned belly putters, and what came next was counterbalance. But counterbalance, you don't see that many anymore. So for us, the benefit is when you have a super heavy head, you tend to lose feel a little bit when it's a 400 plus gram head. But a lot of players benefit from something a little heavier because it steadies their hands, especially on shorter putts. Yeah. So for us, we can still mimic that same feel without creating a brick at the end of the shaft. Yeah. And we find it just really helps players dial in their speed control. So if they see a 10-foot putt, they know what 10 feet feels like. And then if they want to tweak it based on green conditions, if they travel a lot and play different courses, that's where you can manipulate the head weight a little bit and take the 15 gram out and put a 10.
Oh, similar kind of system with like a little disc weight or something?
Yeah, we sell weight kits and all that. So, for the players that travel, get a weight kit.
Yeah.
And you can tweak it. We want the club to change. We don't want you to change.
Yeah. For our clients, it doesn't matter if they travel or not. They're probably getting a weight kit because they're all in.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
no, we've had that even on some tour players and stuff. I know some tour players that actually change lofts on putters depending on green speeds and then adjust to the courses.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or bounce on wedges is not uncommon either. So.
Absolutely.
We've definitely done it with tour players in Australia. We've had them like an Australian putter and then a Japan tour putter, and it's just really different conditions. So the ball just tumbles differently, right?
And the other unique thing about some of our putters, now we have all the standard grips out there for putters, Super Strokes and Golf Prides and all that, but our own grips are actually round that are in the fitting system. And Jack, you and I were talking about that is originally when we created these round grips, it was really just beneficial for the fitting system because you didn't have to worry about orientation when you built the putters. Right. But what we found, again, through player testing is we actually noticed a big improvement in dispersion for most players because they weren't so distracted with trying to line up their thumbs with the ridges or the flat paddle in the front. Instead, they just intuitively were able to grab the grip and just worry about rolling the putt instead of hand position and elbow position. And essentially, shocker, right? You turn your brain off a little bit. And
that makes sense.
Yeah. I actually need that switch installed if you've got one of those. I really like that concept, actually. I've messed around with a lot of grips, as we all have, I'm sure. But it makes a lot of sense to me that someone's just not thinking about the grip so much. You get it in the right spot. Also, I think round probably will seat out kind of nice between the pad of your hand and get the putter running up the forearms a little better. And
it's on every other club.
Yeah, right. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. And again, it's not a perfect fit for everybody. Some people want the Super Stroke or they want whatever, the pistol grip. That's great. We have
think
those.
about the Super Stroke, which is obviously the most popular putter grip out there by a mile. I mean, they started with essentially a larger round grip.
Yeah,
the Jumbo Max
they got
stuff.
their jump in the market.
Yeah,
right? So,
yeah, that was it.
Round's not necessarily new, and it does work.
Yeah, and we've had those guys in. They play around with crazy shapes. Yeah. They basically do the R&D for it here for a lot of the stuff with Mark and one of our kind of tour coaches kind of thing that we have in, and they've been sticking tape and sticks and all kinds of weird stuff over grips just to figure it out.
Yeah, the other benefit in is I don't know how many times you guys have, but you switch a putter grip on your putter and all of a sudden it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
Because the alignment's never quite the same. So with the round grip, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter who puts it on. Doesn't matter how they put it on. It's going to feel the exact same as the old putter. Yeah. So you don't lose that magic.
I like that idea. Before we wrap this up, you guys are based in Colorado now.
Yeah, so since the company started, we were always based in Austin, Texas, which is still there. That's we call that kind of our machine shop. That's where a lot of prototyping's done. We do a lot of our limited putter runs, accessories, things like that there. But now we moved out to Denver. We have the owner of our company as of about 3.5 years ago, Doug Coors. Most people are familiar with the Coors name, hence kind of we're based out of right around Golden, Colorado.
One of my favorites. Yeah.
There you go. We're based out of Denver now. We just moved about 6 months ago. So we're still settling in. It's kind of like when you move a house. It never goes the way you want. Yeah. It never goes as fast as you want, but we're finally settling in. And it's enabled us to really start bringing on new team members that we've needed to add to kind of support the growth we've had in the last several years, where we couldn't really do that in Austin because of the impending move. So it's a great fresh start for us. We're excited. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, and I beg everyone to watch this, go online, check it out, watch this podcast, dive in, take a deep dive. Justin, you've been awesome on this today, mate.
Really good.
Thanks. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
We'll have you again, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Thank you.